Kearny, first of all, which is one of the great communities in this state, obviously here in Hudson County, just signed a historic manufacturing incentive bill, working with the Economic Development Authority and great legislative leaders, both sides of the aisle. Michael Testa, Republican, Linda Greenstein, Democrat. We moved essentially $500 million of incentives from other programs into aggressively incenting manufacturing in New Jersey. I love this because it's a carrot as opposed to a stick. I'm not a big tariff guy. I think that's ultimately going to lead to inflation, and consumers in New Jersey are going to pay a big price for that. People could debate that. I feel strongly about that, but I know there's no debate around this. This is basically putting chum in the water, as we've done in film, as we've done in the startup, the strategic innovation centers, as we've done many times before, and we know this pays off. You know, we're essentially a Moneyball administration, so this is not like a gut feel. We know this works. This is putting serious money at work. As I mentioned, $500 million with lots of different requirements. You just don't get the money. You have to employ X number of people or invest Y dollars or both. There's extra juice for things like women, minority, veterans, LGBTQ plus shops or firms. There's extra juice if you're in an opportunity zone. So it's got a lot of really cool features. Again, it's bipartisan and it's effective immediately. Like Tim Sullivan, who's with me, said comment period begins when?
Next week.
Like next week. So we're trying to get this money on the street responsibly, obviously, ASAP. And I think it'll have decades worth of positive consequences. And it's a big week for us. Not only this bill, we just got rated top 3 state in America to live in, not by us, but by objective assessments, just behind Massachusetts and Idaho. Massachusetts is a state we compete with almost every day. Idaho is actually one we don't compete every day. A great state, but not one that we're up against every day. And if that weren't enough, Standard & Poor's just upgraded us on Monday to an A+ credit rating. And well, I'll tell you something, I've been meeting with rating agencies for 43 years. And I think rightfully, if there's bad news, they take you down quickly. They don't want to be embarrassed. I understand that. If there's good news, it takes a while to re-earn their trust. And I'm incredibly proud, not just at Standard & Poor's, it's our 8th upgrade in our time in office, but on this one and more broadly, we've re-earned their trust as a state that you could trust. It's fiscally responsible. So it's a big week. Great to be here.
Governor, you mentioned tariffs as it relates to manufacturing. We've heard anecdotally companies moving their operations to New Jersey or at least somewhere in the U.S. to avoid the tariffs. You mentioned at our editorial board meeting that you were seeing examples of that. Are you seeing that more so, and do you have any examples?
We are seeing it more so. It's not a publicly known situation, but there is a situation that actually led Tim and me and then our legislative leaders for that very reason to craft this bill. So we think it's almost it's a barbell impact. On one hand, it's the multinational. It may not always be a tariff-driven reason, but that's certainly another reason you want to onshore your manufacturing. That, in fact, is a live situation that Tim and I are both aware of and in touch with that had big implications for this bill. There's also the other end of the barbell. There's a big local component. So Mac Products will benefit from this to the extent they want to further invest in some of the advanced manufacturing that their president, Eddie Rusnow, spoke to. So it's and both.
An issue that's been getting a lot of attention is this proposed rule change around independent contractors and gig workers. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the proposal itself and any reactions to the pushback.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a sort of stakeholder engagement phase right now, and I'm going to probably stand back and allow that process to play out. I know there's a lot of passion on all sides of this, and I've heard it directly myself. But let's let this play out, and God willing, it'll land in a good place for workers and for our economy.
Governor, do you have any comment on the fatal shooting of Deborah Terrell, a 68-year-old woman killed Friday morning in her senior apartment building by Josue Plaza, a New Brunswick police officer who has already received major discipline for prior misconduct?
I don't. Obviously, any loss of life is a tragedy, but I don't have any insights on that.
How about the double murder perpetrated by state police lieutenant?
Oh, it's just unspeakable tragedy, devastated. It's a law enforcement matter, so there's not much I can say, but devastating, tragic, all those words come to mind.
The White House and the President has spent the last week attacking you personally over this fatal crash at Lakewood. Do you have any response to what they've said about you and the Immigrant Trust Directive?
I don't have any response to what they've said, but I'm not happy either. This is a tragedy that should have been avoided. This guy had prior convictions and or arrests. He shouldn't have been on the road, and frankly, he shouldn't have been in the country. I've been unequivocally firm about that. So frankly, I don't have a lot of disagreement. This is a tragedy that could have and should have been avoided.
The White House says you're personally responsible.
I heard your question, please.
Going back to the Franklin Township tragedy, this trooper, he was at one point on the governor's detail, as far as we know,
Yep.
and was then appointed to the Attorney General's detail. I'll know if you happen to know of this trooper, or
I know him well. I know him well, but there's not a whole lot I can say, as you can imagine, other than this is
when did he serve with you?
overwhelmingly tragic and devastating. He was there when I got here, and he was in and out of the mix right through to recently.
After today, any thoughts on the legislature not moving on the heat standards bill for workers?
After today, did something happen this morning?
Well, no, I'm just talking about spending an hour in this warehouse.
No, leave me on the heat standards. I'm sorry, I missed that. It's a little warm, isn't it? No new input. But listen, we're in New Jersey. We got to make sure workers are safe for sure. But you also have to go into this with your eyes open that in the middle of August it's going to be more likely than not 95 degrees and high humidity. But we got to make sure workers are safe for sure.
One more, Governor. Tomorrow there's going to be that joint session in Toms River about energy. Several lawmakers are going to get together, talk about geothermal energy, tidal and wave energy, just continuing the conversation of how New Jersey could find different ways to power.
Yeah, listen, we're an all of the above state. And one of the big disappointments for me is, for instance, the Trump administration pausing the offshore wind program when you've got a supply-demand imbalance, which, by the way, exists in many respects for good reasons. We're a hot state. I don't mean that literally. I mean that we people coming here. We have more people living here than ever before. Tim Sullivan mentioned more businesses were formed in the month of June than in any other month since they started keeping record, and that's at least over 20 years. That's a good sign. But with that goes responsibility. And one of those big responsibilities is to have enough energy to support that increase in businesses, increase in population. And I think any discussion around finding other responsible sources of supply, count me in. Thank you all.
Thank
Stay
you,
cool.
Governor. You too.
Yep.